it's about living a life of simplicity and living a more humble existence with less, consuming less. And then when we do consume, because we are innately consumers, like being really selective and conscious about what consumables we choose to bring into our lives. And then that exchange being a vote for the perpetuation of that consumable and how it's produced and where it's sold. So kind of bringing it back to that idea as to like, that's why we're doing it. It's not to achieve zero waste. It's not to, tick all the boxes of how you might see someone doing it on the internet who's done it for a really long time. Taking it at our own pace so that relationship with the change is always only positive. Because we are living in a world that is set up for convenience. Convenience has been sold to us as a desirable thing to save time for all these things that we need to save time for, but then we've lost our connection to process. So I guess when it feels hard or it feels inconvenient or we don't have time to do stuff, we've just got to adapt and make sure that we're only changing stuff that we feel comfortable changing, and reminding ourselves at the same time that convenience isn't the goal. It's about re-understanding that connection to process and the why, and understanding what we're actually voting for and how we're interacting with the world, instead of just having it all there at our disposal. Other challenges are definitely like, really, if one person in a household is really inspired at making some changes and everyone else in the household isn't, it can feel a bit overwhelming and quite like, I remember I was living in my family house when I really first started like seeing in a different way, and it was so frustrating to like have everyone around me not see what I was seeing at the same rate that I was changing in my own mind. And it took quite a while for me to develop the compassion and the understanding to just be like, they're all on their own paths, and they've all got other stuff going on for them, and they're all maybe passionate or aware of things that I'm not even aware of. So the best thing to do is like, you do you, and the rest will follow. If they see you as a bright, shining, like happy, passionate example of this new way of living, but no one changes because they're guilted into it by, this crazy rubbish queen that lives in their house and is telling them what to put in what bin, which I was at the start.
Yeah.
And then I realized, I'm just going to stop talking. I'm going to stop telling people what to do. And then everyone around me in my household, all of my friends started making changes as soon as I stopped, having that frustration and that expectation that like, I had that conversation with them and they seem to, take on some of the things. Now they're not doing it. Oh my God, I wasted all that time. Like,
it's like living by example.
Yeah, just live by example.
That's such a huge point, because a lot of people find out all this information, or they start and they get like they're on this kind of rampage of this new way of being, and that could be anything, like spirituality, like all the things. It's like, how do you most effectively get to people's level and explain it, like share it, rather than preach it, or like try and make them feel guilty, or like having that compassionate stance of being like, this is what I'm doing, and like almost in a way of inspiring people to do it rather than making them feel like they should. So how do you approach that in terms of sharing?
For a few years, I gave myself this rule, a rule, I guess, with this and with veganism as well, was that I was like, I'm going to play a social experiment where I don't bring it up myself and I wait to be invited to talk about it. And then just focusing really purely on living by example and being a walking advertisement of this way of living, because we don't see billboards of like non-consumerism. We see all of the stimulus in our lives and all of the marketing in our lives is focused on trying to make people be consumers. So little old me and all of the other people who are promoting, living with less are the only marketing and advertising we have for, a more conscious way of living. I just kind of started focusing on that and really gently and happily just doing my own thing and making sure that I wasn't ever making people feel like they should do something or that they were guilty for doing other things, and just constantly being super accepting of exactly where everyone else is at that point in time. And it was crazy the changes that came from that. And watching people just change and get excited about changing because it's always their own idea. It's crazy. And sometimes it can come in the simplest forms, and it's like a mind-blowing shift for someone that then they apply that critical thought that they hadn't unlocked yet, or they hadn't connected those two dots to so many other things in their life that are like even more potent than that.